Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're a new subscriber or a new viewer. My name is Kyle. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is coming out May the 10th. I am very excited to see this movie, and in preparation for it, I'm going to be talking about the first two entries in the rebooted Planet of the Apes trilogy, Rise and Dawn, and today's review is going to be for Rise. Rise of the Planet of the Apes was released in the year 2011. It was directed by Rupert Wyatt and stars James Franco as a scientist named Will Rodham. And his newest creation is what he coins the cure to Alzheimer's disease. Now, before it can be successfully tested on humans, it's tested on apes. Before we go any further, guys, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. And also, this review will contain spoilers, so if you have not seen this film, what are you doing? Please watch it and come back to this review. The term reboot is practically a joke nowadays. Everyone kind of rolls their eyes at it, but back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, it was the most exciting thing in the world. You had Batman Begins, Casino Royale. Later you had 21 Jump Street. Rise of the Planet of the Apes was that movie that I got to see in theaters back in 2011. And after 13 years, it's amazing it's been that long, but after 13 years, my opinion of the film has remained the same. I adore this movie. I think it is, I dare say it's a masterpiece, and I think it is much better than people give it credit for, and in my personal opinion, it still remains my favorite of the rebooted Planet of the Apes trilogy. But why exactly is that? That is what we're here to uncover today, so I hope you guys enjoy this review. To ensure this review will not go on for too long, I could literally sit here and talk about this movie for hours. There is a term that I have coined for this movie, and that is the efficiency of storytelling. This is, to me, an example of a movie that, honestly, even though it's been only 13 years, I don't think this would get made today. In an hour and 38 minutes, the amount of things that are accomplished in this movie is extraordinary, and that is thanks to the screenplay written by husband and wife team Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. Their screenplay for this movie is remarkable, in my opinion. I really think it is one of the best scripts in recent memory. Right off the bat, we get introduced to James Franco, who I think gives a great performance. And what I think is so fantastic about his character is, if he was just written to be a very passionate scientist who loves to simply create, that would be one thing, and that would be absolutely fine for the narrative. His introduction basically confirms that he is very passionate about his work, and his detailing it with the board of directors also shows that he's passionate about his work. And again, he coins it as the cure to Alzheimer's disease. So it's something that the audience can simply get behind because there's a lot of people in the world who suffer from memory loss. But later, right after the lab is unfortunately ransacked, and Caesar's mother dies, he ends up taking Caesar home, and we as the audience discover that his father is suffering from Alzheimer's disease. And all of a sudden, it all makes sense. Everything comes around full circle here. Right before he returns home and makes the decision of a lifetime to basically adopt Caesar, we discover that his mother was, unbeknownst to Will, pregnant with Caesar, and she was trying to protect her baby. And what I love about this is not only does it set up the relationship that's going to occur between Caesar and Will, but it shows, more importantly, the correlation between apes and humans. Because even though humans evolved from apes, that passion and that need to protect your child, that has been in existence since the beginning of time. All of these things happen in the first 15 minutes of the film. It is phenomenal storytelling, and not a second is wasted, but also nothing feels rushed. And as you get to witness the montages of Caesar growing up inside the human home and then visiting the redwoods, everything about it feels like a true progression of the character. It's incredible storytelling because the redwoods represents freedom for Caesar. He gets to climb trees, he gets to see the whole view of the city, and his decision to lead all of the free apes into the redwoods makes complete and total sense because that is his freedom. That is his life away from the very sheltered and almost, you could say, captivity of living in a human home. Now, what I think is so great about this movie that eventually leads into the next two films is the fact that Caesar's initial upbringing was with a human. And not only a human, but a human who loved him. He was raised with love. And that is one of the great aspects that, again, correlates between humans and apes. And I think what's great about the story is that running through Caesar's plotline, you also have Will's plotline, his desire and his need to save his father's life. It's something that we, the audience, are completely behind. We 1000% understand his character, his motivations, and why, even though his father ends up dying, he still wants to continue to figure out a cure. You could say that he is trying to play God because his father does eventually pass away, but prior to that, he didn't just recover, he improved. It's truly great stuff, and John Lithgow as Will's father is fantastic in this role. Now, of course, Caesar's violent encounter with a human leads him to his animal captivity, and these scenes are phenomenal. Again, this movie just moves. I think what makes it so spectacular is the fact that outside of the redwoods, Caesar has been deliberately sheltered. He is considered and viewed as property, not as a real person with real feelings and emotions. And it works so well here because, just like with the home, he is captured. He's in captivity. He's sheltered. But he is now going to be with his own kind. And he's wearing a shirt and pants that disconnect from his own people. And you get to see that as the film progresses. And of course, we have Malfoy, well, which is actor Tom Felton, who is basically playing the American version of Malfoy, just a big bully. This movie is always trying to escalate, but it does it in a very natural way. Caesar begins to get used to and comfortable with his surroundings. He can communicate through sign language with the other apes, especially with Maurice. And I love Maurice. I mean, who doesn't love Maurice? But their interactions are fantastic. Apes alone are weak, but apes together are strong. And what's even greater is Caesar is discovering his identity, his true heritage, and what he needs to do. But this movie is able to do it in such an efficient way because you're not really thinking about that as you're watching it because you're so engrossed with what's happening. But you understand that Caesar is no longer going to be treated as property. The scene where Will tries to convince the owner, played by Brian Cox, to release Caesar. There's a great moment where Caesar looks down and there's an insert shot of the leash that Will has, because he's not going to be brought out on his own free will. He's going to be released as property, and he closes the gate on Will. What makes this movie feel like a complete package is just how tragic the entire story is. You have a drug that was created with love, and with what I believe is still the best of intentions. You want to cure Alzheimer's disease. That's something that anyone would want to get behind. And for a time, it was working. His dad was improving. But, unfortunately, he regressed and passed away. But instead of giving up, the scientist perseveres, and the newer version of the drug that's created gets spread to simply one person, and one person is all it takes, and that is what leads to the downfall of the human race. I think just in retrospect, looking back on everything, it is truly incredible how a virus that began in a lab, out of nowhere, just got spread, and that's thanks to just one person. It leads to the virus spreading across the entire world. And even back in 2011, I don't think we could have properly predicted how realistic that was going to be. Now we're going to jump into the third act, and it's not a review of this movie without talking about the scene. I think for people of any age or any generation, there are just certain scenes in movies that you will never forget for the rest of your life. No! There's no words to describe how incredible this scene was for the first time. And for the rest of the scene, the entire auditorium was dead silent. No one moved, no one said a word. Just the thought of that line is just, it sends chills down my spine. It's been doing it for 13 years. It's a scene that I have watched hundreds of times and it never gets old. And I don't think I mentioned the brother of Tom Felton's character, Rodney, but it's unfortunate that he gets pulled into the situation, although Caesar, quote-unquote, saves him and puts him in a cage. And on this rewatch, I was like, wow, that is very interesting foreshadowing for what will happen to humans in 2,000 years. Now, of course, there has to be action in this movie, but what I love is that not just in this film, but with the other two films in the trilogy, I would not call them action films. They have action scenes and action moments and explosions and whatnot, but they're much more cerebral and psychological than that. I don't think the action scenes would have been as intense and it would have been as emotional had it not been for the incredible dialogue scenes, moments of sign language, and just moments of silence that all three of these movies have. That being said though, when the spear is thrown at the animal control guy's truck and he looks up and all the apes are surrounding him on the roof, that is one of those moments that is immortalized for me. And the eventual fight on the Golden Gate Bridge is also really exciting and really fun. And I didn't mention the ape Koba, but of course I will talk about him in the next review for Dawn. But of course Koba was one of the apes that they were experimenting with, the 113. He's the one that ends up killing James Franco's boss, and he watches him fall to his death. And we'll talk about that again in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. But it's truly a great ending sequence because it leads to them going into the Redwoods, which is freedom. But then we get a little post-credits teaser of the guy that Caesar bit and the guy that was sneezed on. He's a pilot, and he is going to be flying all around the world and spreading the virus. In my opinion, guys, this movie does everything right. It sets up a compelling narrative, filled with characters and subtext that we can really get behind. The action sequences are visceral and exciting, and of course, it's not a review without talking about how amazing the visual effects are, and how it set the stage for how the next two films were going to take it and improve upon it. This movie really is the gift that keeps on giving. After 13 years, I've watched the movie and I still feel the same level of intensity that I felt seeing it as a 12-year-old in the theater. I love this movie, guys, unapologetically, and of course, I am going to give this movie an A+. This is without a doubt an A+ for me. If you stuck to the end of this review, please let me know what you think of Rise. I love to hear your comments, so please put them in the comment section below. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and check out all the links to my social media pages in the description box below. Next time, guys, I'm going to be reviewing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, so please stick around for that. Thank you, and stay tuned.